Hello, listeners. Yamina here. Welcome to the Dr. GPCR podcast. We are excited to share that the Dr. GPCR Ecosystem 2.0 platform opens to all beta testers starting June 15th, 2022. We plan on opening the ecosystem slowly to resolve any kind of kinks as soon as possible. You can visit us at ecosystem.drgpcr.com and explore the new site. Access is restricted to members of the GPCR field, and each sign-up will be approved based on one's involvement in the field. Once your sign-up is approved, you'll be able to enter the ecosystem. You'll also have the option to select a plan and get access to all things Dr. GPCR, including the upcoming Dr. GPCR Summit, access to new podcast episodes before they even get released to the general public, our new group discussion and forums, our new and improved job board, and Learning Center, where you'll be able to take a course or even prepare and share a course with your colleagues. Discover GPCR companies in one place and much more. Take advantage of everything that the new GPCR dedicated online playground has to offer today by visiting ecosystem.drgpcr.com and signing up. This is the only place where GPCR scientists, trainees, and GPCR organizations can thrive and where it's only about science and GPCRs. Think ResearchGate meets LinkedIn meets Amazon at the tip of your fingers. Visit ecosystem.drgpcr.com to start your journey today. Also, make sure that you mark your calendar for the third edition of the Dr. GPCR Summit. This year, the summit will be held between October 10th and 16th. Stay tuned for more soon. Visit ecosystem.drgpcr.com or visit our old website, which is still active, drgpcr.com, to explore everything that we've been doing in the past 2 years. And now, let's dive into this episode. Hello, everyone. This is Yamina from Dr. GPCR, and today I have the pleasure of having with us Steve McCloskey. He is the CEO and co-founder of Nano. And today we're going to be talking about Steve, his career, and obviously VR and how it helps scientists solve problems. Hi, Steve.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hey, Amina.
Nice to meet you, Steve. It's so great to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, it's nice to be on the podcast. Yeah, thanks for inviting me on here. It's always a pleasure to talk about GPCRs and other cool science.
Awesome. I'm glad to have you here. And before we hit record, we were talking about, what we'd like to cover during the podcast. And you had mentioned that your life and Nanome is kind of intertwined, but let's deconvolute that during our time together. And let's start at the beginning. Where did your journey start as a scientist?
As a scientist, I mean, I think it started when I was a kid. I remember putting together this poster in elementary school with kind of like this little figure, like mixing chemicals and stuff. And I was like, maybe it'd be cool to be a chemist. Like maybe I'll mix the right thing together that'll magically cure cancer. And yeah, it's just a matter of like having the person like mix the right things. I didn't really have a great understanding of it. But I was like, yeah, seems cool. I had definitely a bunch of people with cancer in my family. And I was, I think part of the impact as a kid, just kind of going through all that. So yeah, that was my impetus for being interested in science. I think even before that, I kind of had some like test tubes and like grind up little like plants and things that were fragrant and do a little bit of that. So that was kind of fun as like a little kid. But I guess also around the same time period, I had my first VR experience, but I'd say that one kind of just stuck in the back of my mind because you couldn't like do VR every day back in the 90s. It was like you tried it once and then you're like, why aren't all my video games more three-dimensional?
So what was your first VR experience? What's the context of it?
So I was at Six Flags Magic Mountain in California, down in like near LA, basically. And I was just going there because it was summer and you would go on roller coasters. It was a fun thing to do as a kid. But I remember they had this little like cyberpunk looking like encapsulated enclosure thing, and I was like, oh, this looks cool. So we go over there and there's people with like VR headsets on and these little like circles that like you can move around in the 3D environment so you don't just run into a wall. And I was like, this looks cool, like I want to do this. And yeah, I think my brother had done something else and my mom was always like, oh, you guys need to be equal, so like James, like you tried that. So Steven, you get to try this one or whatever. So I got to try the VR thing. I was really happy about it. Because it was just like a mind blowing experience. Like you put on and now I call them headsets, but this thing like was a helmet. You put on this helmet at the time, and you're in this immersive world, and you're like pretending like you're Pac-Man, and you're like running around. Like I still have these like memories. I think these like spatial memories of that moment, just because it was so new, it was so different. I didn't know computers could be like that. And I was always kind of interested in 3D a little bit at that point, like the red blue stereo glasses and trying to just get the 3D experience, but nothing was really there. Like that was presence, like trying to recreate presence with 3D glasses, it's never going to work. You're going to see, oh, here's a little bit of stereo. But when you get the head tracking and the VR headset on your head, it's just so much better. It's like you're in the environment, and just kind of always thought about that, and wanted my video games and all that to just be more 3D,
more real life experiences for sure.
Yeah.
So what took you from little kid chemistry, then VR experience, into where you are today?
So in high school, I got deeper into different science engineering stuff. Like my dad's an aerospace engineer, so started working on cars and stuff like that. But the big thing was I bought a old Mercedes diesel off of my cousin and converted it to run off vegetable oil. Wow. And that was like really fun. A lot of mechanical stuff. Like I was into sustainability and like, not using fossil fuels every day. So I was like trying to get waste vegetable oil for a while. That was its own thing with everyone being under contract to not give away their oil. And you get it from some places, but not from a lot of them. So, that was cool, but it wasn't where I thought like transportation technology really needed to be in terms of like, can everybody have this like waste vegetable oil? Like there's not enough waste vegetable oil to go around. Should you do the algae oil? Like got into kind of algae oil in I guess high school with researching it a bit. And then I went to UC San Diego to study biochemistry in the chemistry department. And was like, this is cool, like potential pre-med or do all the other science stuff I'm interested in. Like I'll figure it out. And then immediately, the first quarter, I learned we had a nanoengineering program. And I was like, oh, nanoengineering, this sounds cool. I'll check it out. And so it was basically all the people working on cures to cancer and new materials and solar and battery and just all these cool areas of technology that were all happening at the nanoscale. So kind of thought like, all right, if I understand nanoscale, I'll probably understand like everything else in the world because everything's happening at the nanoscale, and I'll be able to do cool things with it, and probably help with cancer and probably help with the solar and new battery technology and all that. And I started taking the classes, talked with the chair of the Nanoengineering Department about doing some lab research. He really liked all my diagrams from converting my car to run off vegetable oil, and was like, all right, like even though you're a freshman, you probably do all right in a lab. So started working in a material science nanoengineering lab, got my hands on with microscopes and other cool equipment that allowed you to characterize nanoscale phenomena and interpret that. And I just loved it. Like being able to zoom down on an electron microscope, it's still a great feeling. Like I wish I had one in my office just to be able to look at different things and see what's actually happening at the nanoscale.
That's so interesting. So you went from, little kid mixing up chemicals to definitely keeping that tinkering need.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, so you went to UC San Diego, you studied biotechnology, and you started out with chemistry, biochemistry. And then how did the idea of creating Nano come from? Where does the VR come?
It all kind of came together where, between looking at electron microscope stuff and really getting an understanding for the nanoscale world, going through the coursework and just seeing like how bad 2D was, whether it was like chalkboards or projectors or even just computer screens with like sort of 3D graphics on a 2D screen. Yep. Kind of got into more computational programs like different molecular dynamics and things like that. Through one of my courses, and then just got really interested in that whole field and started exploring different 2D slash 3D, like mouse and keyboard based design interfaces and analysis. And you'd be looking at proteins and materials and other cool stuff. And I was like, yeah, this is good, but like, I don't feel like a nano engineer. Like, how do you become a real nano engineer?
Yeah.
And, I thought, well, hey, like we need to like literally have these things in front of us. And like, I was kind of already into Google Glass and like other like things like that. I wrote this one paper on like, I don't know, like transhumanism to the extent of like, it was like gender and body in the media was like the general topic, but then you got to like write your own subtopics. And so I wrote about like human modification and like amputees versus like, I don't know, Terminator and other sort of like cyborg-esque, and sort of drew the comparison of like how a lot of media tries to alienate, having mechanical bits, mixed with humans. And there were some things about people like beating up this guy that had a Google Glass. And I don't know, I just thought there was a lot of like interesting stuff going on in that field. But anyways, so head-mounted displays were kind of on my radar. Mm-hmm. And I saw the Oculus Kickstarter and I didn't buy. I was like, all right, Kickstarters fail. I've been burned before. Let's see where this goes. And they actually delivered the DK1. And I was like, wow, nice. And then they were talking about the DK2, the Oculus Developer Kit 2. And I was like, oh, this sounds cool. Like, started looking into that. Read some people's reviews about it, and I ordered it in 2014 to try to be like, all right, this thing seems like it has the potential to be like that experience I had as a kid.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then I'll be able to like literally be in there with my molecules. And I was still skeptic. I was like, is this going to work or not? And so I waited my 8 weeks to get the headset and I put it on, and immediately I was like, oh my God, like this is it. This is the thing that I need. All right. Like, how do I get my hands in here next? Because like, if I have this thing and I get my hands on, like I'll really be a nano engineer and I'll be able to like build stuff at the nanoscale and like tinker and send it off to run computation and then analyze that and do some more stuff. So I just got really excited. I showed it to my PI, showed it to all my friends. Eventually showed it to the art department at UC San Diego, the visual arts department. And I actually requested what they were calling like art studios. Mm-hmm. But they were literally like next door to other like nanoengineering labs, and it was the same layout, the same like building. Basically, they had all the cool stuff in there, and it was just like kind of empty as like a little storage room because the art department was underutilizing it. But their whole thing of making those spaces was do some sort of like Bauhaus, like art plus science and engineering all mixed together, and no one was really doing that. And I was like, well, this is getting nanoengineering accessible to people. Like artists could ever potentially come in and like make some like nano art, and eventually, right, you want to make it so powerful that artists can make real cool stuff, and just anybody can make cool stuff. And I think the art department really liked that, like democratizing access to scientific tools and getting more people on board and kind of working with artists and other people because this is a 3D user interface problem for the most part that just happens to be applied to the nanoscale that are solving other issues with that. So there's a lot of cognitive science, computer science, and other areas that we all kind of got together in that art studio. And just really started building out the team, building out the prototypes, and eventually the product. When we moved to another part of campus, we moved to the Qualcomm Institute, which is like office space you could rent. By that point, we already had the co-founders put together. We had like an intern army for a little bit as well. And then we ended up hiring some of those interns as our first employees.
Wow. What a great adventure.
Yeah, it's been fun. I'm really happy to have my co-founders, along the way. Like, 2014, it was just me, and I got my friend Sam to help out. He was on the rugby team with me. I met Keita at like a VR film festival promotion event. Met Ricardo at a Tech to Reconnect night at the San Diego Zoo. And it turns out that we all knew each other's networks and all that. And like Sam's wife was friends with Keita, but then Edgardo's sister was friends with my fiance. And it was like everyone just kind of knew each other already. It was really cool.
That is awesome. You mentioned something interesting about democratizing, access to these kind of tools. And it sounds to me that the university was really trying to help and provide you the space and provide you the opportunity to build out, the lay down the foundation of the company. Was it difficult to, pull in the different teams together from at the university?
I'd say the university is like or at least at the time was like passively supporting this. I think they're trying to be more active to like recreate what we did. And at the time, it was like, that no one's going to tell you that you have this available to you. But if you ask the right people and get connected with the right people, and there's nothing stopping you from asking those people and connecting with them, then you could do it. And I think that that's one of the big things that, the campus wouldn't really promote that this is what's going on. Mm-hmm. But, if you just talked with the professor and the professor was managing a space, like, it's up to them and their decision. So it's really, at the, micro level of, it's just this professor is owner of this office or this art studio. Are they down with it? And at first it was Ricardo Dominguez, who's a very interesting character around UC San Diego. He's in the visual arts department, more of a performance artist. I really love him. I think he's a cool guy. But he's done some very interesting like performance art that's like made the media news before. But he was a part of this like digital like hacker thing like way back in the day with like Sheldon Brown, and I think he's just got a cool art history there. But then the lab ended up going to Benjamin Bratton, who's also an interesting character in the visual arts department, who's also like not creating art, paint, or sculptures, anything like that. But he's more on the like global sociology type of perspective. He's an interesting thinker, and he's got some books out. But I'd recommend The Stack. It's kind of a large book, but The Stack by Benjamin Bratton kind of breaks down how different companies and things kind of function in the world through this thing called the stack, where you have like user interface, address, city, cloud, earth. And I think it's a cool model. We're kind of seeing that emerge with different decentralized models like DAOs that are popping up. I think they kind of fit into that same paradigm as well. The university, I think, has been supportive of what we do, but it's all been at like individual levels, I guess. But keep meeting the individuals, eventually meet the chancellor, and the chancellor is like, cool, keep it up, cool stuff.
Yeah. And you made another great point by, mentioning that you had to do the legwork. The university wasn't against it, but you had to do the legwork. And I think that it's very important to put it out there and to put in, to shine a light on the fact that you had a passion. You found a way to make it a reality, and there's nothing wrong with asking the question. You asked the right questions. You found the people who you should be asking those questions from, and then you were able to build out something incredible out of that.
Thanks. Yeah, and it takes a while, a lot of persistence, because like we almost got kicked out of the lab when I was going from Ricardo to Benjamin, but then I just met with Benjamin and convinced him. It's like just got to keep convincing the next people, and eventually you get a community of people that just all believe in it. They're like, like this is the future. Like, of course it makes sense. Like proteins, molecules, crystals, like it's all 3-dimensional. Like, why don't we have a 3D user interface for all this where you can get hands-on? And more and more people are becoming enlightened to that every day. But some of them got burned out by other technology like 3D glasses. And I think they had the same experience of me as a kid, which is like, 3D glasses are cool and all, but it's not that same like full immersive, like Tony Stark, Jarvis, holograms everywhere type of experience. Like, how do we get that to the scientists?
Yeah, and I think it's very important. All right, 2 questions. When you were when you had your first experience with VR, did you know what you wanted to become? Did you ever think that you'd be where you are today?
No. I mean, it was hard to like fathom, like if it was even real or not, because it's almost like an illusion or like a dream or memory. But of course, like these are real experiences. As some philosophers say today, it's like experiences in the metaverse are completely real because they're shared, they're tangible. They could be recalled by multiple people and verify that like, hey, I was in VR at this day in this virtual environment with this other person. But at the time, I don't know, I just feel like it was this whimsical, like transient experience where I just was like in there and then took the headset off and then I was just back and I was like, like, how do I get that again? Obviously it's an expensive headset, all that. But yeah, no, I didn't know that I was going to end up founding a company and being CEO of it and having it very virtual reality centric, or mixed reality, extended reality, augmented reality. It's really just spatial computing, I guess, is one of the umbrella terms for it.
It's such a, I think it's such a unique experience that you just described and that you went through to get to where you are today. The other question I had for you is, tell us a little bit more about the difficulties that you faced, because most of the time, and most of my guests, we talk about their achievements, but I always like to dig into some of the difficulties that they've had during their career and how they overcame those. We talked about persistence, the fact that, you had to, when the lab owners switched, you had to really convince the next person to let you stay and continue. But anything else you could share with us would be very useful.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, there were also a lot of people that just didn't think the idea was going to work. Like, who's going to buy it? Is pharma really going to pay for this? Like, does it actually help with science and research? Is this just a toy? VR died in the 90s. There was all this negativity and people that were just, I don't even know why. Like, if you don't believe in some technology, like, sure, I guess that's your prerogative. But I don't know, to just go around like spreading the hate just seems kind of silly. Like, a lot of people do that with blockchain nowadays too. Like, just hop on the NFT hate train. Like, sure, there's a lot of speculation around NFTs and all that, but there's also some cool things that the technology unlocks that can never be done before. And I feel like we should be leaning more into like the positives of technology, because there's going to be positives and negatives with every new technology. It's a common thing throughout history. But leaning into the positives and trying to just have more positives come out of the technology and see really, identify what those positive things could be. Like, for us, so many zombie shooters and like VR video games and roller coasters and stuff out there. It's like, all right, the world probably doesn't need a few more of those. But the world needs access to molecules in virtual reality to help with things like the COVID-19 pandemic and curing cancer, and being able to connect around the world and be virtually present with teams of scientists that are geographically distributed or working from home. Just trying to lean into the things that work and make sense. And just ignore the haters, right? It sounds cliche, but I think it's true. Like, the haters eventually stop hating when they realize that they were wrong, and that's their own journey.
Yeah, keeping the course of where you want to go. And how big is Nano? First of all, let me take a step back. Where did the name come from?
Oh yeah, so nano, right, being really small, and then omics and ohm and dome, genome. This being like the everything view of everything that's happening. Like with genomics, it's looking at the entire genome. And so with the proteome, you're looking at the entire collection of all the proteins that are out there. So with Nanome, we're looking at the entirety of everything at the nanoscale, and like, really trying to build the home for nanoscale design, or the whole ultimate interface for molecular design, right? So many ways to phrase it, but really just, I think Nanome encapsulates it, because it's just everything's happening at nanoscale. And if you start there and you start working on new designs and creations and all that, you want to see how that ends up helping the macro scale, whether it's a new drug or a new enzyme to break down plastic or capture carbon. There's just so many cool things happening. That's where Nanome comes about.
And the logo design, did you spend a lot of time arguing with your co-founder and the team and trying to figure this out? I'm asking because sometimes it's a difficult decision, and ideally you don't want to rebrand after a year because you realize it actually wasn't a good choice.
Yeah. So on the logo, we actually had an old logo that was kind of similar. It was like a thinner version of the current logo, and like the floating object was flipped to the other side, and it kind of looked like an N. Mm-hmm. And then this was like a more kind of like cleaned up version of this. Like, I really like this version of it. I feel like there's so many cool things you could kind of see out of it. But one of them is like having like your whole like interface for like interacting with things like this futuristic keyboard, and then you have this like floating little like AI companion kind of helping out. So I mean, this is one. It does kind of look like an N as well. So yeah, we worked with a design team around that as part of kind of getting the brand together, because I think we have this really put together brand from the co-founders with the name stuck. Nano was a cool name. I think we all liked it, and then just like the logo and other things we all kind of agreed upon at that point.
Amazing. And then you mentioned that you kind of the founding team, you all knew each other in some ways, but over the years, how did you grow? How did you scale?
Well, we've traveled around the world together. We've slept in the same Airbnbs, and have hung out numerous times, and we're just always hanging out, whether it's online. I played Population One, which is a virtual reality battle royale game. I played that with Ricardo and Sam a lot during the pandemic because we couldn't hang out in person, so we just have to go into VR and connect and hang out, and it was really fun. So we've it's just like traveling creates I think a new bond. Where you're all experiencing new stuff, and you're all seeing cool places, but then you're also hustling to get to the next meeting on time. And it just feels great to do business travel with good friends and co-founders. I think it's one of the best, most rewarding experiences you could have.
That's fantastic, and I think the concept makes Nano very unique. What was the landscape like when you started Nano? Were there any other competitors you would have, or how easy was it to get situated and have that space in the market?
In 2014 there was nothing. I mean, there was some 3D glasses, like the stereo glasses with other 2D applications with mouse and keyboard. So that was, I guess, the closest, but then nobody was doing head-mounted displays like Oculus-based. And then I think a year later, I ended up seeing this molecular rift, and I was like, oh, this sounds kind of cool to what we want to do, but a little bit different. It's this academic project. I like that. I never really got it to work and never really tried it, but I just thought it was cool. They were having little videos and all that. Kept building what I wanted to build because I was more about engineering and not just visualization. A lot of people ask, is this a good visualization tool? It is a good visualization tool. But it's a great communication, collaboration, and design tool as well. And I really wanted to build a tool that satisfied all that. It wasn't just only a static protein that you can't edit, can't modify, can't send out, run simulation. Yeah. So I just wanted so much more. And so kept building the product, and eventually we got the product into the hands of Professor Zoran Radic at UC San Diego in the structural biology Skaggs School of Pharmacy. Mm-hmm. And he was super into all this stuff. He was older in the 90s when VR came about, and I think tried it, and then tried all the 3D glasses, and then tried to get that working, and eventually ordered an Oculus Rift DK2 and tried to get molecular rift working, and I don't think he was able to set it up either. But I did see a picture of him with the headset on for some research expo at UC San Diego, and I was like, this guy's got a VR headset. It looks like he's got some molecules in the background. This sounds cool. I think one of our interns shared it with me and was like, there's this guy here doing VR molecule stuff. I was like, oh, cool. Research Expo tomorrow, 10 a.m. Price Center. I don't know if it was 10 a.m. So I showed up and I found him, and he's got this huge monitor, or a huge TV, a 60-inch TV that he wheeled out there. And he's got all of his molecules and Pymo or something thrown up there. And I was like, hey, how's it going? I saw online on Facebook that you had a picture of a VR headset. And he's like, oh, yeah, it's I really like the concept, but I can't get it working. I'm like, do I have something to show you? Come by our office, which was also on campus now in the Qualcomm Institute, where we were paying rent and got to keep our intellectual property, all that. So it's kind of a cool situation. Yeah. So we invited him to our office, and he puts on the headset, and he's like, wow, this is amazing. This is exactly what I want. Can I have this protein, this protein, this protein? And our parser wasn't great at the time, so it was kind of very manual. Yeah. So we then built a demo for him with all of his proteins. And he had this Yu-Gi-Oh panel on his left wrist where you could select all of them. And that was super early prototype of all this. And he absolutely loved it. He's like, this is amazing. Like, oh my God, like my molecules, like so much space in here and so many new things that I'm seeing. And so, yeah, he kind of became our first customer. Like he literally, bought it with his credit card with their little Stripe reader machine and the cell phone. And yeah, that was like our first official sale. And shortly after that, we started working with Novartis GNF in San Diego as well. And yeah, it's just been really great to find these people that always wanted this, for like 30 years, and they even might have gotten burnt out on the technology previously, but now they're just like the biggest champions because they're like, yeah, technology finally came together. Like, thank you, gamers, for bringing that to science because now we could use this for research.
Absolutely, and I love I could see the little card reader on the phone happening, and it's amazing that there is these tools that allow scientists to actually see their molecules. And it's not every scientist has the ability, I don't for sure, the ability to imagine the molecule in space. And every time I see a 3D model on a 2D monitor, I'm like, okay, whatever that means. I don't know. I can't see it. So having that tool is really amazing.
Yeah, I always didn't like it. Like even with learning like 3D math, like when you have the x-axis and the y-axis, and then you have that like diagonal z-axis.
Yep.
And it's supposed to be going like into the page, but really it's just a diagonal line on a piece of paper. And yeah, I got it a bit, but I always just thought it was really lackluster and just like a bad way of doing that. And like it was really hard to explain concepts of like going from 322 in space to like -154 and like just kind of interpolating where these things were. So yeah, like same boat with you. Like some people, I guess, say that they have it better. I've noticed mine has gotten better by just doing things in VR. Like I have spatial memories, and I feel like that's kind of kickstarted my 3D visualization of proteins and all that outside of VR. But if someone's just imagining the 3D model in their head, that's not a real experience. That's just a thought. Like, in order for it to be a real experience, it needs to be like shareable and tangible, even if it's still virtual.
Exactly.
And so like you can't invite somebody into your head, but you can invite them into Nanome and then show them everything that was in your head and communicate that in a meaningful way.
I love it. And so we've been talking about molecules, and every time you were mentioning this professor, and you kind of loaded his molecules, all I had in mind is loading the program in the Matrix, and being able to do that. So let's talk a little bit about who are the scientists who benefit from Nanome, and in the context of the GPCR field as well, because at the end of the day, most of the people listening to the program are GPCR scientists. So if somebody comes up to you and say, well, I'm a GPCR scientist, how would Nanome and the technology benefit my research? What would be your answer?
Man, there's so many ways that it benefits the research. It's hard to just kind of pick one.
Let's start at the beginning.
So GPCR is kind of, might have complicated mechanisms of action. It might be kind of hard to understand, maybe with some cryptic binding pockets and other areas that are, I guess, allosteric and like might modulate the receptor in different ways. And, it's all very nuanced. And if you don't understand those nuances fully, then you're not really going to understand your protein and not really understand how to target it. So, by using virtual reality, you're able to understand all those nuances pretty immediately and give you new insights that you might have never had before.
It's really, and I think it goes back to really seeing in 3D and being with your molecule, basically, and being able to touch it and manipulate it more than just seeing it on the screen.
Yeah, well, and seeing molecular dynamics of your molecule as well, and kind of seeing how it moves over time, and it might open up. And you lose a lot of information when you play essentially a 4D video, which is a 3D molecule moving over time.
Yeah.
When you play that on a 2D screen, you lose at least one dimensionality of that. If you're in 3D VR, the molecules are natively 3D in front of you, and then you play it over time and you see everything. There's no missed little bit hanging out behind that. Like you get the full experience.
Yeah, and you made a point very interestingly before that you actually get the memory of seeing it in space, and you can share that experience, which I think is very unique. Unique experience. We could both be looking at the same, image on the computer that's moving, but it's not the same thing as being in virtual reality and being able to kind of pull and tug on it and, move it in a way to explain your point.
Yeah. Even in 2D, right? If we're looking over each other's shoulders at the same monitor, you could actually share like the same 2D experience. But a lot of the time over things like Zoom, when you do the screen share, there's like a limited frame rate that you're sharing at. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of it's pretty bad because it's video based. What we were really surprised at, there's no natively networked 2D molecular applications out there.
Interesting.
Like, we have video games that have networking, and like when I play a video game, there's no video stream going from some other person's Xbox or PC over to my computer. It's my own computer rendering my own graphics, and then there's really tiny network packages that go over to the other person and say I moved, or I shot whatever, or I captured the flag, whatever game we're playing. So there's no natively networked molecular applications besides ours. Like, it's just so weird that nobody just made like a collaborative 2D version of molecule viewers that you would both render graphics locally and then just stream movement information across the two people. But we had to do that, right? It's the way that VR has to be done. Is you have the graphics rendered locally due to latency, and then you have just all the coordinate updates if I moved a protein here, and all that's being transmitted over the network. So collaboration is key.
Yeah, and I think as you mentioned, I think before we hit record or after, I can't remember, the fact that having the ability to be in the same room virtually during COVID was also in a way a lifesaver, because you were still able to interact. Agreed, it's not the same thing as seeing you in person and shaking your hand and doing this interview, but it's a nice alternative.
It was great. Like, I didn't see Sam and Ricardo for over a year, till we all got vaccinated, and then we're like, well, COVID numbers are low, we're vaccinated, like it's not novel or it's gonna kill us. Like, if you get it, probably get sick of it, but at least we're vaccinated, so it's not gonna be as bad. But anyways, when we connected and saw each other, it was like we were hanging out the whole time. It wasn't like, oh, I haven't seen you, like, let's catch up. It's like we were caught up because we were always talking, we were always hanging out.
Yeah.
But it was just cool to be able to see each other in person. Yeah. I still remember that day. It was awesome. It was like my first actual day out, like after the whole pandemic. It was like, 2 weeks after the vaccine, we went over to Encinitas. We got some like pizza and stuff. It was just, walked along the boardwalk outside, like went to the beach and just looked at it for a bit because we had our clothes on, so didn't go swimming, but just really nice to walk over there in that area. But without VR and without that during the pandemic, I feel like it just would have been, hey, I had no clue what's going on in your life. Like, we haven't seen each other in so long, but with VR, it was just, we were already connected.
That's so interesting. What do you think is the future of, meetings across the world? Because at this point you could even say, well, let's meet, have a team distributed worldwide and we could meet in VR.
That's what we do for 360 days out of the year. And then we bring everybody down to San Diego to meet in person at our Nanoversary and bring everybody in. And it's really nice to be able to see people. But it's cool because we're all hanging out and either 2D video calls like this or just in virtual reality together. So we always have these digital contact points. But it's so much cooler to be able to hang out with new people in VR. And then eventually meet them. You're like, wait, did we meet? Yeah, we just met in VR. That's right. But we did meet.
Do you think the world is going towards having these meetings, replacing kind of Zoom type of applications and going into the VR experience?
I think it depends what you're doing. Because if we're in a, I don't know, texting or like Morse code. It's like, it's used for some stuff, right? Or, audio calls with no video, right? I still make those, and it's not like video is 100% on all the time.
Yeah.
And now we have video calls, but I think anytime that you're working with like structural 3-dimensional data, you should be probably doing it in an immersive environment, because sharing 3D things over like a video stream is just inefficient and not really the way it should be done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely do think that we are moving to be doing more stuff, because in addition to the obvious cases where you're working with three-dimensional data and it needs to be shared amongst multiple people, absolutely makes sense that way. There's also other benefits that are more social and like cognitive associated with being in the same virtual environment and meeting people. So yeah, maybe it will just be a general replacement for everything. But in our lens, we're starting with the very obvious use cases of you are doing this so inefficiently with these 2D screens and streaming it and all that. Like, just get into your protein and get into your data and like understand it better. Like it's the way it should be done, and it'll help you. And so, it's the inevitable future, I think, for the molecular industries, and it's the inevitable future, I think, for many other applications that are social or gaming or entertainment. And yeah, there's a lot going on with it. Like, I don't think it's going to stop.
That's amazing. I can't, full disclosure, as I mentioned before we hit record, I have not tried it yet, but I cannot wait to try it in the upcoming weeks. And I'll tell you all about it. I've never worn a VR headset. I've never been in a VR environment, just because I didn't get a chance to do it, but I can't wait to try it out.
Am I hyping it up too much? Or are you just going to put on the headset and be like, okay, that's kind of what Steve talked about. This makes sense. Like,
I don't know. We'll see. I honestly don't know. I'm always open to trying new things and testing out new things, because that's the best way to kind of forge an opinion. Right now, I'm intrigued.
You're going to record your first moments in VR.
We should.
That with everyone. Yeah.
We should record them. I think it's just an inevitable way of looking, as you mentioned, at molecules and moving ahead. And hopefully at some point it'll be such an easy and technology that everybody has access to, independently of the science part of it, that you can have those experiences in VR. Not to replace the human experience, the face-to-face, the in-person, but to kind of complement that when it's not possible to meet.
Yeah, and everyone, there's new headsets that do mixed reality, like the Vecchio XR3, and then I think Meta has been teasing some other thing, like saw it on Zuckerberg's head. They like blurted out. But people are talking about mixed reality now, where instead of just being closed off and being in the virtual environment, you actually have cameras that give you a live feed of the real world. So it kind of feels like augmented reality, or how you would think augmented reality would be. But it's the actual way to make it right now, because transparent augmented reality screens, traditionally, they have a really low field of view, lower resolution, all that. But with this, you get the full resolution and full field of view of virtual reality. But then you get the cameras that give you the feed of real life. So it looks really cool. Yeah, I'm happy to show you the Vecchio XR3 if you're ever in San Diego. That'll probably blow your mind, because VR people get their mind blown with that, because it's the next level of like mixed reality.
Nice.
But yeah, it might be good to get started with virtual reality and then move over there. But yeah, you don't ever need to close off from your colleagues in person. You could be next to them, still see them, and see the molecules in front of you.
Nice. I think that's next level. I think it's really, really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's happening sooner than you think, right? Because the Vecchio it's out, but it's kind of expensive, and I think it's only a matter of time before that type of technology gets commoditized and brought to the masses.
Yeah. Well, everything is a matter of time. And what I was just thinking about it, just think about 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and what kind of phones we had 15 years ago. I was talking to someone.
I didn't have a phone 15 years ago.
Right?
Sorry, you were talking with someone?
I did have a phone, but it definitely wasn't anything, high end. It was just a functional phone where you could just make phone calls. You did not want to text more than yes or no, because it was just taking too long. But I was talking to someone a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about, the internet and using Netscape instead of Internet Explorer. And we were like, wow, that was a long time ago, but it actually wasn't that long ago.
Yeah. I remember AOL, right?
Yeah.
American Online and logging in with that, and like that being my browser, I guess. And, having AOL Instant Messenger. Yeah. That was it's a fun time. And I was in middle school or something back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember it was nice to go on AIM and be able to chat with people, and it's like
Right.
kind of the first digital connected experiences where you see people in real life and you still chat with them digitally, and
Yeah.
yeah, really like that.
And then fast forward to today, and perhaps tomorrow soon, you'll be able to be in VR looking at your, or looking at your molecule, but still see what's happening around you. I think it's really this accelerated evolution of things technology wise.
Yeah, like instant messaging has been taken for granted, and like video calls even have been taken by the next generation, like taken for granted. It's like, oh yeah, like this is just obvious. Like everyone does this.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that immersive environments will be the next thing. Like, oh yeah, it's obvious. Like everyone does this.
Yeah. It's so funny because I have two young kids, and both of them think that every screen is a touch screen.
Oh yeah.
Which I think is really funny. And I don't think neither of them has seen like a good old telephone that you just pick up and then you have to either push the buttons or you have the little dial.
Oh man, this spinny dial, yeah.
Yeah. But it's important to keep in mind where we came from, but then again, look forward to the future.
Yeah, you're gonna have like the 2-piece phone as well.
Yes, well, yeah, a little bit too young for that, but almost.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because we both have microphones right now, right?
Yes.
And then we have the headphones, and so we've regressed, right? We've gone back to having the microphone and the headphone, two-part system as opposed to the whole all-in-one.
We're there, yeah, and I had to set it up so that the computer uses the microphone, which is a better high-end microphone, and not the microphone from the computer or the headset. Yep. So sometimes that's one adjustment that needs to be made on Zoom to make sure that the audio going in is not going into the same source. But yeah, you're right. We're there. We're just not holding it in our hands anymore.
Yeah, just not holding it. Yeah, that got a little stand that holds up for me.
There's no operator between us.
Yeah. There's nobody connecting little wire switchboards. Yeah,
exactly, and having one or two phone numbers.
Yeah.
All right, super. Thank you so much, Steve, for being here. I cannot wait to try out the platform. I'm really excited to what's next for Nano. And if anyone's listening or whoever's listening to this episode, I invite them to go and take a look at the website and discover the new technology, and hopefully it might be useful to their research on an everyday basis.
Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, you can check out nanome.com. It'll redirect to nanome.ai, which is like our main domain that we use. And yeah, feel free to download it if you already have your Quest 2 or other virtual reality headset. It's available on Steam. It's on Oculus. Like there's a free version to get started. And then, if you're trying to actually get into your science workflow, just talk with our team. Like we have application scientists that are happy to help out, meet up in VR and really show you, in VR, in person, in virtual person, how it actually works and like how it's actually helpful for research like GPCRs, which it's a ton of people. I've learned a ton about GPCRs by just meeting with our customers and users in virtual reality and having them like explain their research and just chatting about it. And like we've made several YouTube videos for this one researcher in Canada. It's working on the serotonin 5-HT2A receptor. And I had no clue about how any of this stuff worked. And now I have a pretty good idea for which parts are opening up and which parts are important to actually interact with the receptor. And yeah, it's just so cool to be able to go in there and help these people's research and learn more about it.
Yeah, I did check out the Nano's YouTube channel. It's really fascinating to watch all these videos. And I also want to mention that you guys have a monthly webinar as well. And I naively thought it would be in VR, but not yet. That might be.
We have our own podcast in VR. And the webinars are mostly 2D with like a VR portion. Like we just had Ictos on and we did a 2D webinar for everyone that doesn't have access to VR right now. And then we did a meet the speakers in VR after the webinar. Yeah. So yeah, we're going more VR.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Before I let you go, quick question. Where did the podcast idea come from?
Yeah, it's something that we've been talking about for a while because like we have the YouTube videos that are out there, but it really came out of like highlighting our user stories. Like I really wanted to showcase just like how everyone kind of what their journey was in their career, how they got into nano and virtual reality, and just share more about like what they're doing that's impacting the world in various ways. And yeah, I think it kind of expanded beyond that to just be like, all right, like connecting with people in the community that are doing cool stuff and getting them on. But yeah, like the recording it in VR was something I really wanted to do and have guests actually come into VR and record this like virtual reality podcast. We spatial record them as well. We don't usually have like a lot of molecules. Sometimes we have a few molecules in there, but because it's mostly audio, we don't really focus on that. Like we really focus on the models in our YouTube videos. But for the podcast, very conversational. We just happen to be in the science metaverse, and there happens to be a molecule next to us. But we're chatting about other things, and we're not going super deep into the actual mechanisms of how these things work.
Yeah, those are very hard to capture when you're, it's an audio program, it's a podcast. So I think it's a very nice complementation between the podcast and the YouTube videos.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah,
fantastic.
And really just trying to onboard people to the science metaverse and show them what's out there. And yeah, it's called the Science Metaverse Podcast, and so we're really trying to get people just exposed to what's possible.
Amazing. I love it. Hopefully more after listening to this episode, more people will reach out and get a chance to test out Nanome. I think it's such a cool idea. And
thanks.
Not only it's a cool idea, but it's something that you can actually end up touching and seeing when it comes to your molecules with a beautiful tool.
Definitely, and as the better haptic devices, come into play, you'll get more presence and feeling and all that, and be able to feel and pull and tug. But right now it's just big hand controllers with a little bit of vibration, but you can still kind of reach out and feel them.
That's awesome. It's amazing. I can't wait to try it. I was excited before we started talking today at the idea of trying out Nanome, but now after we've talked, I think it's gone from here to way up there. And if I'm ever in the San Diego area, I'll be more than happy if the invitation still stands to try out the next level experience.
Definitely. Cool. Yeah, that sounds great. Let me know.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Steve.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. See you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this Dr. GPCR podcast episode. I'd like to thank our guest, as well as our team members, Attila Forrest and Ines Pinero. Become a beta tester today and sign up for the new and improved Dr. GPCR Ecosystem 2.0 at ecosystem.drgpcr.com. Please subscribe to the Dr. GPCR newsletter, find us on YouTube, and if you like our podcast, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. You can also leave us a testimonial at drgpcr.com/testimonials. Another great way to support us is to share your favorite Dr. GPCR program with your network and colleagues. As always, if you have any questions or suggestions, email us at hello@drgpcr.com. Until next time, stay safe.